Picture this. You walk into a bank in broad daylight. You are 5'6", 270 pounds. You are not wearing a mask. You smile at the security camera. You pull out a handgun. You walk out with $5,000 in cash. 90 minutes later, you do it again at a different bank. And when the police knock on your door that same night, you stare at them, genuinely shocked, and you say 4 words. But I wore the juice. This is a true story. Pittsburgh, January 6, 1995. His name was McArthur Wheeler. His partner was Clifton Earl Johnson, and the disguise they used to rob 2 banks in broad daylight was lemon juice. Now, let's be fair to Wheeler for one moment. He did not pull this idea out of thin air. He started with a real fact. Lemon juice, when you write with it on paper, dries clear. You can't see it. Hold the paper up to a candle. The heat reveals the writing. Children do this at birthday parties. It is called invisible ink. So Wheeler took this fact, and his brain performed an operation. If lemon juice makes ink invisible on paper, what would it make invisible on a human face? Take a moment with that. A reasonable person would pause. A reasonable person would ask a friend. A reasonable person would maybe consider that paper and faces are different objects. Wheeler did none of these things. Wheeler did something far more dangerous. Wheeler decided to test his theory. He rubbed lemon juice all over his face. He picked up a Polaroid camera. He took a selfie, and here is where the universe begins to play a cruel joke. Because when Wheeler developed that Polaroid, there was no face in the photograph, just a blank square. Detectives would later guess he either had bad film, a broken camera, or, most likely, was just so bad at operating a Polaroid that he pointed it at the ceiling. But Wheeler did not consider any of these possibilities. Wheeler held that blank photo and felt the warm glow of scientific discovery. He had become invisible. So, at 2:47 in the afternoon, Wheeler and Johnson walked into the Swissvale branch of Mellon Bank, just outside Pittsburgh. According to reporting by Michael Fuoco in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, Wheeler walked straight up to the teller, pulled out the gun, demanded the money. The teller handed over $5,200. They walked out, and then they did it again. Now picture the scene from inside Wheeler's head, because this is the best part. Wheeler is not nervous. Wheeler is not sweating. Wheeler is calm. Wheeler is, in his own mind, the smartest bank robber in Pennsylvania. He looks directly at the security camera. He smiles. Some reports say he even waves. Because in his mind there is no camera to look at. The camera cannot see him. The camera is an empty room. The lemon juice is stinging his eyes so badly he can barely see. This, he assumes, is just the cost of being invisible. That night, the local news broadcasts a crystal-clear, high-resolution image of his entire face on the 11 o'clock news. Tips begin flooding the police line within minutes. At 12:10 in the morning, less than an hour after the broadcast, officers knock on Wheeler's door in McKeesport. He opens the door. He sees the cameras. He sees the photographs. And he says it. But I wore the juice. This was not a joke. He was not high. He was not mentally ill. The detectives who interviewed him confirmed it. Wheeler genuinely, sincerely believed that he had outsmarted modern surveillance technology with a kitchen ingredient. And here is where the story gets weirder. Because 2 years later, this case ended up in the World Almanac. The almanac landed on the desk of a Cornell University psychologist named David Dunning. And Dunning, reading the story, did not laugh. He froze, because he recognized a pattern he had seen everywhere. People who are bad at something often have no idea they are bad at it. Dunning called his graduate student, Justin Kruger. Together, in 1999, they published a paper proving it scientifically. They named the phenomenon after themselves, the Dunning-Kruger Effect. You have probably heard the name. You have probably never heard the origin. The most cited theory in modern psychology, taught in universities around the world, was inspired by a man who rubbed lemon juice on his face and walked into a bank. Wheeler went to prison. He served his time. He gave no further interviews. He almost certainly never knew that his arrest had inspired a foundational theory in modern psychology. He never knew that 25 years later, students around the world would be reading about him in their textbooks. Clifton Earl Johnson, the partner, was arrested a few days after the robberies. He largely disappeared from the record. The lemon juice has long since faded, but somewhere out there a teenager is still rubbing it on a piece of paper at a birthday party, holding it up to a candle, watching the invisible ink slowly appear. And nowhere in the world on any face has it ever made anyone invisible, except for one shining afternoon in Pittsburgh, in the mind of a man who really, truly, completely believed it had. Picture that.